Hello, hosts and travelers. Welcome to the podcast, Hosting Your Home. Each day around the world, millions of guests stay in other people's homes using the Airbnb platform. Debi Hertert looks for stories that come from these connections to share them with you. Listen in as we hear stories that teach us the human side of hosting your home.
I was asked not too long ago to have a podcast dedicated to money. The question was something like this. So I know you really like doing what you're doing, and that's just great, but what do you get out of it financially? Is it worthwhile? What kind of money are we talking about? Why should I do this? So I took that question to my community, and I asked a few ladies if they would be willing to sit down and have an open and transparent talk with me about their Airbnb income. 4 ladies agreed, and we are having now a panel discussion about these particular topics. We covered each one of these. 1, gross income. 2, operating expenses. 3, net income. And 4, how do we each use the money? This podcast is dedicated to Marcus. Thank you for the question. Now, let's roll. So then the first question I have is about starting your Airbnb and about startup costs. And maybe first we can talk about the kind of Airbnb we have and then what those startup costs might have been and what they included. So who wants to go first?
Well, I will.
Okay.
So we have 2 rooms that we rent out of our home. And when we started, all we really did was paint. And so, that wasn't a lot of expense. We had to buy some sheets and towels and whatnot. But if I included the aftermath of that, because once we got going, we realized, this isn't really what we need to have. We need to have something that's more like a bedroom that has a real bed and a futon. So I was just thinking we probably spent about $3,000 just in startup costs. When you include all that.
A new bed and linens and...
Yeah, beds. We had 2 beds and linens and towels. And we put a dresser. We were changing out furniture as well. And then we had another $3,000 in guest safety things that arose that we realized. We have an old 90-year-old house, and we realized that we had gotten used to some things that were not safe for our guests, such as some of our window sashes had broken, and we knew how to open it, and then, kind of always keep it open, but we couldn't expect our guests to do that. In fact, we had one guest get his fingers stuck in our window, and that was the big, we have to fix this, so we did. So I include that in the startup just because that was about safety, and so about $6,000 for us.
Well, my place is a 1-bedroom with a private bath, and I spent probably $100 initially as startup, basically new sheets and a bedspread. And then that was in July, and then in December I took $1,000 and painted an accent wall, took a photograph and had it made huge, got a little desk, got lamps, because I didn't even in the beginning have lamps on the side tables or dresser, little side dresser in the bedroom there. So I've kept it kind of simple and just used the money that I made to put back into the room. Got things like robes, and for a while I even had a desk but not a chair, and then it was like, it'd be nice if you had a chair to go with that desk. So.
And what about in your kitchen? Did you change anything in there?
I didn't change anything in my kitchen or the living room.
Did you change anything in your kitchen, Jill?
No, our kitchen is...
Because you both share your kitchens with your guests.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Like Jill, and I don't know, I can't remember Kathy's house from looking at it online, but we live in an old house, and we did live in an old house. So we started doing Airbnb in an old house where it was our guest room. So there was really not any outlay at that point in time because it was a guest room, and I had it set up as a guest room, and so now here were different guests.
Wow.
Yeah, so didn't really see, it was pretty we had supplied already with linens and all that stuff. So it was really easy to do that and just not have an expense, an initial outlay. But when we moved to Portland and we had a whole upstairs suite now with a private entrance, that is when we bought not only furniture for up there, but people were coming through our house, and we'd stop and they'd sit down at the table, and so we had to have a table and have beer or cider or something. So I realized, okay, people are coming through our house, so this has to all be presentable too. So there was some different drapes and even landscaping expenses that we had, and then like Jill, we have the old windows, so we had to pay a lot of money to have a great guy come in, Dennis from Well Hung Windows, and open everything up. It was pretty expensive. But then over the next 6 months, there was about 10 grand of landscaping done and all of that kind of stuff. Thank you.
So you said about $10,000.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. To get our, we were furnishing a house, and it had to be different than just our kind of thrown together. Ours is pretty eclectic, but, Yeah. And I'm pretty good at finding stuff on Craigslist and all that kind of stuff and making things look pretty comfortable, really simple and comfortable. But I think it was like the landscaping and getting the windows open that were the big costs. Yeah. Making things safe, people safe to come through the gate and up the stairs. And
well, and for us, we renovated where our kids grew up, so the walls were red and black when they left.
Oh, wow.
And there were a number of things that we needed to do back there, fix the door between the two and the two spaces so that we could block that space off. And then we bought the refrigerator, and Rob built all the fencing, and we put in the hot tub, and we put in the deck or the patio out there because we knew that this is what we wanted to do. It took us 5 years, probably.
To transition.
Yeah, when the kids left home, we thought we just really want to do something with that space. And Rob was saying long-term rental, and I said, no, I don't want to give up that much of my life, and I don't want to have other people's animals and kids, and there's just too much to regulate when you've got a long-term renter in your own space like that. And so we started talking short-term rental way back, and we had our vacation rentals. And then Airbnb came to town, and the regulations, they started looking at regulating us, and we thought, whoa, we can do that. And so we probably spent 15 plus.
Yeah.
Again for all the construction and the labor. And I don't count the labor, honestly, because Rob did it and I helped him, and and everybody who came over helped because they had to.
Want to visit? Here's what we're up to.
Yeah. But so anyway, that has worked out really well. And we own our house, so there's no mortgage on it. And that also was a big deal because there weren't any bills. So, all right, that was question number 1, was about the startup costs. And then question number 2 is about gross rent. Now that we've put all this money into it, what are we getting out of it financially? And if there's other questions that you guys think other people would be interested in, then please offer that information, because I'm not a financial person. So I'm really looking at this as an overall picture to try to help people understand, this left brain part of it. I'm really not there. Jill.
So your question is about
what are you getting with your gross? What do you plan? Do you have projections and
I started in March of last year, and so I don't have a full. I didn't have a full year, but we grossed $16,000 for those 2 rooms.
Great.
And thank you, because I don't think we were charging very much. We had really reasonable prices, but we had a lot of turnover and a lot of
your
guests.
Prices are $50 to $60 per bedroom. Is that right?
They're right now I think $60 and $65 for the summer. I took them up a little bit, but I started at 50 and 55. One bedroom's a little bit larger than the other. And so my projection for this year looked like 23,000 because then we would have a full 12-month calendar, but we didn't actually have any business in January and February. So we're looking okay for the other months where we have some experience a year ago. But I'm not all that comfortable anymore that it's going to turn out that way because we have so many other hosts out there. And I've actually started looking, how many, I've got a room available tonight. How many are available in my neighborhood?
Way to look at it.
Yeah, and you can see like there's 16%, availability in your area. Oh. And that's been really helpful for me to say, well, maybe I should take my price down a little bit if I wanted to fill the room.
How are you doing that? How are you doing that search?
Yeah.
I'm just going in and I'm narrowing the price range to my price range.
And that specific date.
And that specific date.
So you just go as a search, as if you were a guest.
As if I was,
for those dates.
Do you clear your cookies before you do that?
No, but I probably should.
What is that?
Clearing your cookies?
Yeah.
I'll show you.
Okay.
I'll show you on my computer.
I think, can you go in as incognito?
You probably
would that
could.
Do the same, be the same thing? Because I do that frequently, so it doesn't recognize me. It knows my location, but not.
So what were your down months, January and February?
That was, we weren't open last year, January and February, but I was expecting we would have some guests, even though I knew it would be light. But we literally had no guests and no inquiries. It was a really very strange experience. So we're doing fine now, but that was like, oh, well, this will be the time I paint.
Right.
Yes.
Or
vacation. Find that downtime to
because you do need the
downtime.
Space. Yeah.
And when you say you're doing fine now, how much occupancy do you have in these months?
Well, I expect it to be about 95%. But as I say, I don't know now. I mean, if there's so many other hosts out there and so much availability, I don't know if I can expect the same thing as I got last year.
How was May?
May wasn't so good. June is looking good, though.
Okay.
So
April good
was
being
great
90% occupancy already booked?
No. I don't know the numbers offhand, but maybe it was 50 or 60%.
Okay.
But it's kind of what I expected.
Yeah.
Based on a year ago.
And in Portland, we have 2,000 to 2,500 active hosts.
Yeah.
So more than there were 1,600 2 years ago.
Yes.
Yeah. So another 500 to 800.
Which is
significant. Yeah, I've started saying no thanks about referring people to be hosts.
I'm looking to refer people out of town.
Yes, that's what I still do too. Yeah,
the guests that come visit.
I did that yesterday. In fact, somebody in Chicago, sure, I'll refer you. Anyway, so that's my story.
So for me, I ended up grossing last year $14,000, and I pretty much have it open almost every day of the year, practically. So that's how much.
Is that one bedroom?
Yeah.
Okay.
And you didn't travel last year, so your occupancy was
a little bit last year, but very little.
So you didn't close.
So maybe a whole week that I wasn't open, type of a thing, and a couple days here and there. But otherwise, it's pretty much wide open for the one bedroom.
And that's like 65 a night?
I normally charge 53 in our slower season and 63 when we're busier.
Okay. And your occupancy is what?
My occupancy in the slow months has been 50 to 60%. So like in January and February for me was that definitely.
Wow, that's awesome.
As far as slow goes, in this June through September part of Portland, it's been 90, 95%. And then hanging out in the middle in those other months, sort of more like 75%-ish. So, but I let people even book same day. It's not too uncommon. And for one day, I find that the one day really helps for people who are traveling. Some of those are the easiest stays. Somebody's driving somewhere and they need a place to crash and they might get in a little bit later but leave early. Yeah. So,
we do the same thing, and I find that too, that people are really easy one-nighters, and it does fill in some gaps. Yeah.
and then allowing people to book same day. Occasionally that's a little bit like of a hassle if it's 7 p.m. and so, your check-in time was 3, people can be contacting you. But other times that's also worked out really well to have, the space used. So just try to keep it turned around most of the time. Occasionally I'm like, I want a day off. And I normally just don't do the laundry and that stuff right away, but I still keep it open. So if somebody did want to book, then I hustle and clean it up and get it together.
Do you have backup laundry in case you don't want to do it?
Well, for me as a minimalist,
that's not a good idea.
I originally had only one set of sheets, which might sound crazy to other people, but I did get 2 sets of sheets, so I do have 2 sets of sheets. So.
Well, so in Santa Rosa, we charged it $40 a night, and we just got inquiries. We had 1 bedroom in our house. It was a 2-bedroom, 1-bath bungalow, and so we just shared our guest room. And I'm fragrance sensitive to chemical fragrance, so I had to grill people. But I could pick as many people as I wanted to be occupied as much as I wanted, but I just kept it for fun and put the money in our little travel envelope. In Portland, my income is dependent on our Airbnb income. And as I transition here and get my lay of the land, so we opened in we moved in November of 2014 and opened in December. And we have been pretty much 90% booked every month in and month out.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's been really good. And for the first time, I've experimented with raising the price. I charged $62 for the upstairs suite, and this spring I charged $72, and the occupancy rate stayed right at 90%. And going into the summer now, as of June 1st, I think I started charging $82 to see, because I want to keep it affordable for people. So I know that I could probably charge $125 for it, but I really want everyone to be able to travel, kids to come on spring break and all of that stuff. So I'm still trying to keep the price under $100. So $82 seems kind of sensible. And we're fully booked for June. We're fully booked for July. I have maybe 10 days that aren't booked in August yet. And people are starting to book September, October, and November.
Oh,
so
are you located
on 32nd right off of Powell? So we're a 7-block walk over to Division Street and Pock and Salt and Straw and all that kind of stuff that people think is the reason to come to Portland.
Right.
Remind me again, your suite, is that like same door access or separate access?
Separate access. So that's
kitchenette.
Why I don't have to grill people anymore.
Oh, nice.
Because I don't have to be around them. Good. So I just have to go up and change the sheets and deal with that. So there's a tiny kitchenette, and separate bathroom with a clawfoot tub. It's very simple. I don't think of it as luxurious, but people really do. And sort of shabby chic, stuff.
Cute.
Also, I don't let people. They have to give me 24-hour notice before I can take anybody. I just need that much to get rid.
What was your gross last year?
It was 18.
Okay.
For that one room, yeah.
Well, I don't have all the figures you have. I have some of them, though, that I'm happy to share. Our gross from our apartment last year was $25,400. That's after all the refunds were pulled out of it, because we do damage deposit refunds too. So the first thing I should preface is that we don't use only Airbnb. So this, out of Airbnb, $7,400 was what we received from them, and $17,800 was from VRBO and Flipkey.
So you do most of your business not on Airbnb.
When you factor in the other vacation homes, the beach houses, then it's about 50% of our business is through Airbnb. But this is just this apartment here.
Good to know.
Yeah.
As these arbitration clauses come up.
Do you think it's worth having this listing on those other 2 sites?
Yeah. Okay. Although I have to say, VRBO has changed their algorithm, so we're not getting the business from them that we did last year, but Airbnb is stepping up to make up that difference. So it probably number-wise, we're better this year than we were last year. So I expect that this 25 will be more than that this next year. But also my prices went up too. So we charge anywhere from $89 to $150 or $160. Nice. There's a hotel right down the street here, and I check their prices for their king suites.
That's smart.
And you have a king suite here, plus a kitchen, plus privacy, plus a hot tub, and so that's how I'm calculating those prices. Plus, we've got now a lot of reviews, and you know how Airbnb does with the reviews. I mean, the more reviews you get, the higher in the algorithm you go, so that people see you when they're doing those searches. So it's an interesting snowball effect.
Do you think that's true? The more reviews
absolutely.
you have, the higher you are?
No, I saw people out when I was keeping track at the very first, because I was really nervous about it. I would see people on page 16 that had a couple hundred reviews. And people on page 1 that had 3 reviews.
Well, so how are you doing your searches?
On different places.
Right, but do you use filters when you do your searches?
Sometimes I do, and sometimes I don't.
That's the thing with me too. And I think I just don't get this whole search thing anyway, because there's so many different ways you can search. So honestly, I take it all with a grain of salt.
Yeah, and I just wanted
when it changes often anyway.
Yeah, it changes.
And that's what I wanted to see. It's like, if I just don't do any filters and it's a general search, there's people all over that have lots of reviews, and they're way back on page 40, you know, and
if you do a general search and you don't put any dates in, we're going to come up on like page 75. So
right.
Or definitely Superhost is supposed to help us.
Definitely, yes, yeah.
And I wondered about that, so I don't know.
Well, one of the things in changing something, but I don't hugely go in there and change stuff myself.
Well, I do. I find, as I did it a couple of days ago, I find that something will prompt me to get back in there for one reason or another, and this was someone who wanted to book, I don't know, next year, and I thought, wow, I don't have any
openings.
Well, I don't have any prices for next year, and they will revert back to your standard prices if you don't get them in there. So I thought, wow, I better get Labor Day and 4th of July and all that stuff in there next year, because that's the way to work the system if you want a cheap place to stay, is you do it a year ahead or 6 months ahead before the host gets updated. Yeah.
That's smart.
So anyway, I was doing that, and I thought, this probably happens. I probably just organically do this about every 2 weeks. And so that might do something to help our search come up.
How much you're paying attention.
Yeah. So, all right. So the other thing that I will just input just to keep things on an even keel, I have no idea what our occupancy is. And when we close for at least a month, sometimes 2 months out of the year. So I'm trying to envision my calendar in my head to be able to input that information, but I just don't know. It's at least 50%.
It must be pretty good. Your income is really awesome.
Over a couple grand a month,
It's very helpful.
Yes. Yeah. That's swell.
Nice with no mortgage. And
Well, can I interject a question too? Because we had a little chat about this, but after we've all been through tax season, and this was our first tax season, I really didn't know what to expect. But I did discover that having an Airbnb means that you have a small business. And you can pay a lot higher taxes on having a small business than you do just renting your space out to a long-term renter.
Depends on what your tax person did with it. It could be one or the other. It could be a rental or a business.
Well, in my case,
and if it's a business, you have to pay self-employment tax.
So in my case, and I had a lot of discussion with my accountant, because I'm like, no, this isn't right. She says, here it is in black and white. If you provide services, and you do, because you do laundry and you clean rooms and you provide food, that's a service, and that means you're running a small business.
That can be interpreted different ways, just so you know, because I see you had the folder from H&R Block that came to talk to us.
So I would love to have account.
I do it as
if I can change it, because it's still kind of, I grudgingly, paid my taxes, but it still kind of bugs me to have to have gone through that. Plus the fact that I was saying about all the safety things that we did with the house, and I believe we only did it because of our gas. So to me, that should have been 100% deductible.
Absolutely.
And in her mind, it is not, and she would not allow me to do it.
I think you need somebody who understands Airbnb.
Yeah, she did not understand it, but she was going by the letter of the law, which is,
Well, it's so new that even people who go by the letter of the law are trying to figure out how to interpret it somewhat.
And here's what a great tax guy, he's used to be our tax guy down in California, and he does taxes for people in Palm Springs and all over the world. He said, don't audit yourself. Write it off, take it as a deduction, and if they want to ask questions, they can ask questions, but don't audit yourself.
What does that mean?
Don't not take something as a write-off when it's questionable. Take it as a write-off, and then if they want to come and ask, then they can come and ask, and you can, if they decide you can pay extra, then you can pay extra. But he said, don't audit yourself. I mean, you don't want a bunch of red flags, but
expenses that were
but
your
that's
business.
I take all our landscaping, everything that I do to that property, I take off. I take more than a third of our utilities, because it's 600 square feet and we have 1,200 downstairs, so it's a third of the property. But I take more than a third of the utilities because I'm doing 2 or 3 times more laundry. They have AC up there. They have more heat up there. So I just take off coffee, toilet paper, laundry detergent, all of that stuff.
I do all that, but it was done as a percentage of occupancy, which turned out to be a fairly small number. Occupancy plus the square feet that you're renting. So it was a very small number. So I would love your account, because I know if I could do that and feel like it was illegal, then I would totally do that.
Yeah, Mark McConnell is my accountant here, and he's wonderful. He's very relaxed. He's very easy to deal with. He's super. I have his phone number anywhere. Someplace I do. I hope I didn't forget.
I'll get it.
Well, that actually segues really, really well into expenses. So let's talk about we've been talking about them anyway, but that's good. So if we have those figures, that would be really nice to share.
Well, I just take everything as an expense.
Yeah, well, let's hear about it, Carol.
I do. I take, let's see. Oh, that's Chuck stuff. Let's see. Total expenses, 20 grand. And I only made 16, so I had a loss of 4 grand.
Wow.
Yeah, so I declared a loss.
Wow.
Yeah. Everything is an expense. And if I'm making a little bit of money, or getting my utilities paid, then that's profitable for me. But I take, let me see if I can find the piece of paper that has all my expenses listed. I don't know if I brought it. But really, it's just, a new coffee machine, new espresso machine, all the supplies, more than half of the utilities, any painting or decorating, any linens that I purchase, all of those things can be write-offs. Any repairs that happen, all the plumbing that happens. One thing that I don't know that I would actually like to know is when I eat at restaurants in the area that I'm going to then recommend or not recommend to guests, can I somehow write that off as an expense, as a research expense?
I think that would be a red flag.
I wonder if it would.
Yeah.
But right now I don't. I mean, if I have 2 businesses, piano teaching and the other one. So yes, that's what I wonder, and I haven't done that.
Yeah, I wouldn't. Rob won't let me.
Entertainment, high entertainment for a home business.
In fact,
is
half
a red
the time
flag.
he won't let me write off the expenses when we have a meetup group.
Oh
and I think
that's absolutely. That's absolutely. I take my expenses off any of those groups that I get together.
Yeah.
I take gas and mileage and whatever I paid at the restaurant. Yeah, that's absolutely deductible. You don't want to have a high entertainment or dining and entertainment, but if it's reasonable, which I'm sure yours is, and that is a reasonable. If they ever call you, they'd call you first, and you just say, yeah, this is what this is, and they'd go, yeah, absolutely.
So for me, I may have looked at this slightly differently, but I was looking at, okay, what do I spend per month for supplies and things? And so I went back through my records, and I spend probably about $60 to $75 if I average in the linens, or, you know, I guess towels is part of the linens, and cleaning supplies. I buy vegan truffles for folks and have those if they're staying longer, instead of making my own muffins like you do. I do the lazy way, but it's a nice way. It's a local company. I have oatmeal is what I ended up, oatmeal and raisins that I put in the refrigerator, just because I was buying bread, but I don't normally eat bread, and somebody would come and they wouldn't eat it. And then I was buying some other things and realized that's not really what I like. So oatmeal and raisins in the refrigerator, and, you know, then they can go to the grocery store from there. But yeah, approximately $60 to $75 a month is what I'm spending.
So that's outside of your utilities and...
Correct. On utilities and that stuff, it's just the percentage of the square footage that I claim. And I'd have to redo the math. My tax person did that for me, but it's, you know, about a quarter of the house. So, and I do put Hulu and Netflix on there. Yeah. And the portion of internet also that goes on there. So,
do people eat the oatmeal and raisins?
You know, it really varies. It'll be where I'm having to fill it up for some folks, and then it'll sit in there for months sometimes.
Okay, I wondered, because I used to put fruit and stuff out, and no one would ever eat it, and I just thought, okay, well, I'm not doing that anymore.
Even though both of us have our kitchens that people can use, I would say that 80% of the time they don't use the kitchen.
Yeah.
And that even when they do, it's often just to make a cup of coffee or tea. And then there are maybe 10% that full on cook and go get groceries and fill up their shelf in the fridge and in the cupboard. And it's a lot of these international folks that actually know how to be more cost conscious.
Yeah.
That tend to do that. Versus the Americans don't. They are always eating out.
I find with the longer stays, people will cook. If they're just here for a few days, they don't even see the kitchen, so I don't care about it. But so we spend just supplies I took as consumable kinds of things like cleaning and food and that kind of thing. And so we spent about $1,000, and I'm thinking I need to.
In the what time frame?
Last year.
Okay.
Yeah, over a year. And so that's pretty close to yours. So I make, like you said, I make muffins available and coffee and fruit. And I actually like doing the fruit because anything that doesn't get eaten goes in my freezer and gets used for smoothies or whatever. So it's really no issue. And I don't deduct 100% of that because we also eat it in the household. And I think that's correct. I feel good about saying, you know, whatever, 2/3 to guests because we have 2 rooms, and 1/3 to us. So that seems about right. And then anything that goes into the ingredients of a muffin gets some kind of proportion. I try not to make myself too crazy with that, but, you know, there's flour and baking soda and those kinds of salt. Those kinds of little things, eggs.
I want to try your muffins.
Me too. Especially
the raspberry ones. Right, I think so I got about $2,000 for supplies for last year.
I didn't want to open a whole separate account, so I had more than one card. It's actually a debit card versus credit card, but just wrote on there, and so separated out before the grocery thing of what's mine, and just say, you know, can you run this through?
That's smart. Yeah, the IRS would love that.
Well, it makes it easier for me and the tax person at the end of the year. Although occasionally I'll mess up or like not have the right amount of money in the right account. So, but overall, that is a good thing.
That's the best way to do it. We were talking a little bit about your laundry expenses. Can you talk about that? Because I bet people would be interested.
Now, and my tax person, just so you know, is down in the San Diego area, but still does my taxes. I knew her from living in California. What she said was you can definitely charge for laundry that you're doing for your guests, linens and laundry that your guests are doing. So I just keep track of how many loads per guest that I had. And then told me to call the local laundry service and just find out how much does it cost to wash and dry. And so I did, I didn't bring those records with me, but let's just say I did 70 loads last year for guests or something. Then I would multiply that by however much the dollar amount was. Put that down as a deduction.
Right. What's interesting to me about that is that you would have to be paying out a laundromat to that, but she's not suggesting that you pay yourself out so that it's income. It's only a deduction.
But if you do that as income, then you need to be a business. And
right.
You need to,
But that's what's interesting to me, that it gets to be a deduction with no charge for income. Okay.
Can you do the same thing for cleaning rooms?
I would wonder.
We have not gone there, and I can't imagine. Yeah.
That makes sense too. Like, what would a cleaner charge to do this space that we're all doing?
Yeah.
I can tell you what mine charges.
Yeah.
Back there.
What?
$30.
Okay.
A turnover.
That makes sense.
Wow,
and,
that's reasonable.
And I do the laundry. So she's there for about an hour and a half, and she'll do everything. She'll do everything that I want. I mean, she'll sweep off the deck and stuff if I want her to, but Rob usually does that. But the way to do that is to have the cleaner come over, look at your space, tell her what you want, and then have her give you an estimate. And
does she live around here?
She's right down there. She's looking for new clients.
Oh, she is. Yeah, she great.
Is. Yeah.
And you pass that cost on to your guest.
Yes, absolutely.
I don't charge a cleaning fee. I think it's one of the things that...
Do you deduct cleaning somehow?
No,
just
because I would have to charge myself income. I think I would have to claim it as if I was paying myself to clean, that would be how I would be able to deduct it. But I don't pay myself to clean, so...
And I have a $10 cleaning fee at my place.
Yeah, so it would come off of that.
More questions popping up.
It's the fun of this business, isn't it?
I don't see the difference between being able to deduct for laundry and not being able to deduct for cleaning.
It's a good question for me to even ask.
Would you?
Yes.
And honestly, I don't see the difference between being a business and not being a business, because as soon as you start doing this, you're a business.
Right.
So,
but you don't want to be
there must be some kind of fine line definition buried in there somewhere that I'm not aware of.
I thought it was going to be a business and that I was going to have to pay self-employment. And I can't remember what Mark said when he said, oh, no, this is because of your occupancy rate. This is a rental. We're going to take it as a rental.
And I've heard that before. I've heard that there is a tax difference with a rental versus a business. But on the other hand, when you get your permit from the city, they tell you that this is basically your business license.
Right.
And so it's a very odd little something going on here that I don't really understand.
Right.
So anyway, I can balance this out and tell you what my expenses are. This part is pretty good, and that is complete. So our utility expenses that we claim are $969 for the year. And then the rest of it, insurance, grounds, transaction fees, management fees, repairs, cleaning, spa, advertising, occupancy tax that we pay. So you guys don't do that because you're all 100% Airbnb. Operating supplies, and then appliances, curtains, linens, blah, blah, blah. It all comes to $8,800. So we're right around $9,000 to $10,000 for our expenses. It's really interesting to hear that when you think about how low your expenses are, how high ours probably evens out in the very end of the net income area. It's fascinating.
Sounds like it,
and you take part of your property taxes and stuff, and part of your mortgage interest and all that kind of stuff if you're running.
Yeah, like for instance, the grounds cost that Rob has on here is like $230. So it's just for that part. It couldn't possibly be for the entire
whole
property.
thing. Yeah.
And so that's to pay somebody to come do landscaping or...
Philly comes and helps clean and weed eat and do all that, a few times a year, and helps us to get it cleaned up. There's a lot of debris that comes out of the trees.
I bet.
Well, awesome, you guys.
You did ask us how much personal time.
Oh, yes.
And then you asked us what we do with the income.
Yes.
Or what it allows us to do. Maybe another way.
Let's have some more water, and then we can continue.
Okay. And how about a raspberry?
Rob stopped at St. Honoré this morning when he went down to see his chiropractor. And he brought us some eclairs to share.
Oh, yippee! St. Honoré is a 7-block walk from me.
Really?
When I first moved here, I went really 3 or 4 times a week. I was just like, okay, this is my comfort zone. You know, when you move, you have to find new comfort zones because everything you've known is gone. St. Honoré was between St. Honoré and the library were my two. So personal time. So what do you guys... I just incorporate it in my life. I don't even really think about how many times I check my email or...
For me, it was really good to kind of pause and reflect upon that. Just, to get a rough idea. And it happened right when I had a week where I had all these messy inquiries. And people without pictures or pictures of a snowman and no profile. So I'm trying to help them by saying, can you please... give me a profile or a picture that's of you. And he says, we're good looking. But I'm like, that's not really what I'm looking for. You're a stranger coming into my home.
Yeah.
So I estimated probably 2 to 10 hours a week. And that would be cleaning, greeting, preparing, doing the online stuff, responding by text or through the app. That's the best I could come up with. And that it really varies. Sometimes you have a guest who's staying for a whole month. And so they're really maybe low maintenance. But you might also have even a day or two where you have multiple inquiries coming through all at once. And or I've had 3 stints recently where I had one night stays 4 days in a row and then 1 day off and then 4 more and then 1 day off and 4 more. And that's when the snowman guy is coming in at the same time.
Forget it. Yeah. Profiles are so important. So about that. I think I probably spend as much time, probably 5 hours cleaning if I've got 3 different changeovers in a week, and I don't do months anymore. But the inquiries and the reviews that you have to write, and I have it in my house rules now. Have a profile with your picture and tell me what you do, what some of your interests are. But it's still so many people make inquiries and don't have it. You can tell they're not reading yet. So I wonder. I think about 5 to 10 hours. That's a pretty good safe estimate.
Yeah. Well, I actually track my time because in my own business, I need to keep track of my time, and so I incorporated the Airbnb time. So it was a great question. So I wonder how much time I spend, and I include everything that you all said. Plus, if I have a guest that I'm spending time with, over breakfast or something, sometimes you get chatting, and that can really eat up a lot of time. But I came up with 10 hours on average a week. I spend cleaning and just doing everything, interacting with guests, making muffins. And
shopping? Does shopping count?
I don't put shopping on there, but
doing laundry?
Everything else that I can attribute to Airbnb.
Okay.
I do. Yeah, laundry.
I didn't add the laundry part in, and that's a pretty big deal.
That's a couple hours right there.
I didn't really add it in because it's throw it in the washer and then go do some other things. So it was kind of hard to... If you live in the home, it's so much easier to do laundry.
Yes.
Than obviously if you're not in the home, you need somebody else to help you with that. But it doesn't disrupt your life so much as if you had to just go there do laundry.
But it still does. I think it takes another couple hours to be back and forth and check the laundry, move it into the dryer, fold it up, put it away, all that.
I find this a really difficult question to answer. I don't spend much time back there because I don't do the changeovers because everything goes through the housekeeper, and the only thing I do is the laundry. may water and
your
plant
life
some
is
plants
your
and
life
things
is
like
Airbnb
that.
now. With
But
I mean,
yeah,
your life is
it
hosting.
really is. I mean, this last week we put out our first newsletter and the podcast program, and I am always tweaking the website
and the meetups and everything.
The meetups, yeah, it's just this is my life. It's not one little space, back there. So
well, and you're now like a leader and a supporter of other hosts, so that also has its own umbrella that stretches further.
Full-time job.
So it is. It is.
See, my trick is I don't fold it. I just put it back on the bed.
Yes.
With a minimalist. Yes. And you're right there too.
Now, I do have a set that's folded that occasionally I get to, but yeah.
Well, I have a question along that lines because I keep wondering. We've been doing this a little over a year. If you've been in business for a while, have you had to replace the sheets, or is it average? Like, how long will they last? And
they last a long time.
That's ours are still okay, but I can feel they're.
It's important to look at if you have a shower curtain to make sure. I mean, that's a very cheap thing, but it can occasionally get moldy if you're not in your own shower. So. It was at the first Airbnb open that somebody mentioned, and I'm like, oh, I better go home and look at my curtain, and I got a new one. And towels I tend to replace a little more often because you think it's not just my towel, it's a guest towel, and they're coming to stay here, and they're rating me. So but they do last a long time. So
and you get good ones, We get our sheets from Costco. We get the nice ones, and they probably last 6 months.
Oh, mine lasts for years, and I just get them from Ross.
Do you really?
Oh yeah, Ross has good sheets. They're the best price. All their lines.
My favorite lately is the threshold sheets from Target because they have really deep corners, but they're not super hard to fit on, and they have little tabs on every side that says side. Or top or bottom.
Oh my God!
That'd be helpful.
Because on a queen size bed, you know how many times you're sometimes doing it the wrong way.
All the time.
Right.
And they're quite reasonable and they're good quality.
Now, what do you mean by reasonable? What kind of cost?
I just bought some about a month ago, and they were $46 for a queen size bed. It's 100% organic cotton.
Right.
And
so they don't pearl. They don't ball up.
They do well. I can't remember
100% organic cotton.
They say it's organic cotton. I know that the cotton is.
Count, though.
I know the cotton is grown organically, but I don't know what finish they put on after that.
That could be a little
and they don't say, and they won't tell me. And so,
but you like them too, Carol?
I do. Yeah, they're great. But I buy my linens for upstairs. I keep my organic ones for me, and the linens for upstairs I buy at Ross because they're like not more than $25 a set. So,
and for me, I buy sheets probably once a year, approximately, to answer your question earlier. And then, what does this money allow you to do? I think that was a good question.
That is a good question. How does it change our lives?
Well, it makes it so I don't teach piano right now. I mean, I didn't want to move back to Portland and immediately have to submerge myself in working. And I love piano, and I don't want to have to teach it because I want to love it when I do it. But the Airbnb, I can live fairly minimally. And so the Airbnb with my Social Security allows, and we don't have a mortgage either, allows me to do that, where I would immediately have to get a job or start teaching piano at a pretty high volume. So that's nice to just have that, little bit of income.
And for me, it helps pay for my health insurance. I am retired, and it has allowed me to stay retired versus work, just like what you're saying. And I'm going to check out whether I should up my prices now that we've had this conversation. It's probably worth at least trying and just seeing how it goes. For the summer. And sometimes I think when you have a lower price, perhaps it's seen as less value. So
right.
I think it does require finding that sweet spot, and that it's always a moving target based on seasonality and demand.
Here's what I recommend that you do as far as that's concerned, is look at your calendar, and if your month is fairly full, let's say half full. Let's say you've reached that particular threshold where you don't need to worry about money anymore. And then you jack up the rest of the prices and see what happens.
That is a great idea.
Yeah, I did that last year. It was really fun. The days that I didn't have, it was just like that. Okay, I've got my month covered. Well, I'm going to try putting these at 8, instead of 62. I'm just going to try this at 85 and see how it goes. And all the time it was just got booked.
Cool.
That's great. What's it allow you to do?
Well,
what did you even say?
No, I'm sorry.
No, that's right. So we have an old house, and it needs a lot of work. And when we we started Airbnb because my son went to college, and we had this big house. It's in a beautiful neighborhood, and we were thinking we don't need this house anymore. We don't need the space, and we should either downsize or we should do something with it. So when we started Airbnb, we were like, this is the perfect solution. And I can see it becoming our retirement. My husband works and I work out of my home out with the business. And it actually helps me not have to get a job, which I did for way too many years. And I'm never going back if I can help it. I love the independence and I love having my own thing. But the money that we make has lately just been going back into home projects because the decks need to be replaced. There's just a long litany of things that really need upgrading.
But it's given you that money to be able to do that. That's great.
Yeah, I can figure out the tax thing.
I
can keep a little more of it. Anyway, I don't know.
What do you do with it? What do we do with ours? Well, we've got the solar panels up on the roof, so that was one thing that we did. And with 4 grandkids, we want to see our kids, and the kids a lot more than we do. But we're starting a travel fund, both for us to be able to visit them and for them to be able to visit us. So we may pay for some of the kids' airfares and things like that.
I mean, it's so helpful.
I don't worry, being retired.
Yeah.
I don't worry.
And friends of mine that were like, all friends of my age and older, like, oh, what are we going to do? We're going to have to move from our house. No, we don't want to, we're not working as much, or we're starting to, cut back our ability to work. And those people that I've suggested Airbnb to, it literally, it changed their lives. It made it possible to stay in their house or keep their property, or, artists that are moving around don't want to, getting older and don't want to set up their booth at all these fairs anymore. Now they can do Airbnb. It's really changed a lot of people's lives and enabled them to maintain their, what they want to do with their lives, their quality of life, I think. It's pretty neat.
Yeah, it is. For me, it's a whole new world. Well, I think for all of us, it's a whole new world, whole new way of life.
Yes. Yes. I like last night. We had some people that came 2 nights ago from Laguna Hills. And they were here for a wedding. They just came up for 3 days for the wedding. And I didn't have a lot of interaction with them. The next morning, I always wake up and, hi, good morning. They were leaving the house yesterday to go to another event. And she just handed me this huge bouquet of flowers and a card that said, we appreciate you. I mean, it's just like, it really opens up the world, I think, to more of a sense of a trusting community a little bit.
I think we're really bridging some cultural gaps.
Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah.
And our guests are so awesome,
Yes.
It's not
just
really
about the money.
It isn't. Absolutely. It isn't. It's so much fun. Just how many sweet people are there in the world?
Yeah.
It's just...
Well, I hope that shed a little bit of light on the topic. We had a fun time, and I'm looking forward to doing more of those panel-type discussions. Your comments are welcome, and you can find us in those places that we always mention on Stitcher and iTunes and Google Play, and of course on our own website at www.hostingyourhome.com. Thanks again. See you next time.